I want to ask you about the international experience. At times when you've coached either an assistant or a head coach, beyond the U.S. teams not having their most talent, what other challenges were there that those teams fell short?
I'm not sure why that's important in either way. This is
just about how difficult the international game is and the challenges of it.
What you're looking for. Sometimes you fall short, sometimes you win, but the past isn't of very much importance other than what lessons we learned from it, and we've learned a lot of lessons, but it's all about basketball, and I don't know what else.
I mean, what kind of lessons are there, if you don't mind me asking?
Play better, execute better, always respect your opponents, compete harder than your opponents, and if you don't do those things, you got a good chance to lose. It's pretty simple. It's not rocket science.
Thank you.
Next up will be Anthony Slater. Tyler, go ahead.
Hey, Pop. I hope you're doing well. This is Tyler Tashman with the Oregonian. I was just wondering what conversations, if any, did you have with Dame leading up to his decision to play for Team USA, and if so, like what your message was to him?
Well, basically, whenever I talked to Dame, it was about letting him know that he was valued and we would love to have him on the team, period.
Thank you. Go to Anthony Slater and then to Tim Reynolds.
Yeah, you've been around, obviously, just a ton of the greatest defensive minds really ever. What about Draymond Green makes him just so special on that end?
Well, when you start talking about great defenders, and I believe he was first team All-NBA this year, if I remember correctly. But the first thing is a natural affinity and desire to be a great defender. And when you say, well, what's a natural affinity? Understanding spatial arrangements, being able to do work early, understanding angles and distances, having the desire to want to stop an opponent, but at the same time understand how that's done with wisdom. It's not, with reaching or blazing speed. It's about position. And some people understand their body position better than others. I think back to Steve Kerr played for me, and people would try to get him in a switch so that they could take him to the block and try to, punch him down under the net. He would release contact, he'd end up in front of him because he understood about space. Now, if he was out on the court one-on-one, he'd have a tougher time. But in certain situations, he had an affinity for how to use his body and what the spaces were. Well, Draymond does that all over the court, and he enjoys it. So all those things help him be who he is.
Thank you. Was Tim Slater up, and then Zora Stevenson.
Hey, Pop. It's been probably a long time since any of these guys have gone through 3 hard days on the court in a row. Can you sort of take us through what today was like and how guys are holding up physically, and how are you?
Sure.
What's that balance between working them but not overworking, I guess?
Well, you're exactly right. We want them to all be healthy when we get there, obviously, but they've got to get in shape. Some of these teams have already been working for 10, 15 days. So they're going to be in great shape, and they know what they're doing because they've played together so long. So we've got to try to play catch up on all those things. Today was the 3rd day, and it was the most difficult day as far as conditioning and work, but it was their best day. They were markedly better today at both ends of the court. We went longer and we went harder, significantly harder than the last 2 days, just to make sure we had a little bit of a baseline to know who had some wind, who didn't, who was in better shape than someone else. But today they all had to compete in that sense, and they did very well.
Thank you, Pop.
You're welcome.
Hey,
Zora,
Coach.
go ahead, and then we'll go to Terrell Emerson.
Hey, Coach, on this roster, you have two individuals that have won Teammates of the Year awards in Damian Lillard and then Drew Holiday when he joined you all. And those awards include like selfless play and leadership on and off the court. I'm wondering how important those characteristics are in a USA basketball setting.
They're very important because we have such a short time together, and somebody's got to lead. Somebody's got to, take on the responsibility to understand, to keep everybody focused, to prepare every day so that we don't skip any steps and lose time, valuable time in trying to, get our execution down. So those kinds of leadership skills are necessary, mandatory, and makes everything a lot more difficult if everybody's just looking around at everybody else and they don't know who to look to. So guys like Drew and Damian are very valuable in that sense.
Hey,
Terrell,
Pop.
you're up. We'll go next with Mark Berman.
Hey, Pop. It was over 20 years ago that you hired Mike Brown to your coaching staff down in San Antonio. Can you speak to Mike Brown then, and can you speak to the Mike Brown that's going to be across from you on Saturday night?
Okay. Well, he's got the same great sense of humor, same great smile, and love of life that he's always had. Right now, he's a lot more confident individual, just like any of us would be, 20 years later in what he does. But more than anything, he's probably, again, like hopefully we all are, he's wiser, appreciates the opportunities that he's had, and basketball-wise, has grown every year, just like all of us. We're all seeking to get better at what we do. So his has just been a progression where the knowledge level and the confidence level have both, coincided in getting better every year.
Thanks, Bob.
You're welcome.
Mark, go ahead, and then we'll go with Ira.
Yeah, Greg, there's a report out there that 3 select players, including Emmanuel Quickly, are done with training camp because of COVID-19 protocols. Is that accurate? And is there anything more widespread? And does it show that this thing isn't over yet?
Well, I think we all know this thing that you call it is not over yet. That goes without saying. Everybody has to still be vigilant and careful. But it is true that 3 of the select players came up positive. I don't know their names, but it's confined to that.
Thank you.
We'll go next to Ira. Go ahead, and then we'll go to Mark Lawson.
Pop, on your staff, you have yourself, who's been coaching for 25 years, Mark Few for 22, Jay Wright for 20, Spo for 13. Mark Few spoke last night about how it shows if you stick with people through sort of thin and thick and give them the time, that in the end, your program will be better for it. Do you see that in the staff you put together here, and just sort of how important it is for teams and colleges to maintain cohesion, that there will be an ultimate payoff?
Well, I think this common sense tells us that competent continuity will serve you well. And I don't think it really matters what business you're talking about. But the rub is always being involved in an organization where people have little patience or don't have much vision and understand, what that can do. They get a little bit antsy, and maybe want success quicker than is even possible, based on the talent or the chemistry that they have on a particular team. So if one can have continuity in the long run, it bodes well for success. But it takes judgment on the part of, bosses, whether they be owners or general managers, or whoever it is, to have that sort of wisdom to make those choices and have the courage to maybe go through the bad times in the beginning for good times later.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mark Lawson, you're up, and then we will go with Tom Petrini.
Hey, Coach. Mark Larson from Spectrum News in Syracuse. There's a few of us on the call. Can you talk about Jeremy Grant, a guy that kind of came out of nowhere this year, and what your expectations are of him?
Okay. I wanted him on this team because of his size, his length, the flexibility, the versatility that he will give us, and the fact that he's a competitor. He wants to win. He's physical. He runs well. He's just a very active player, and he's also willing to fill a role. I just told him today, as a matter of fact, one of the things I want to do is go to the offensive board almost every time, because he's got a knack for that, and if he knows that's what we need out of him, I'm confident he'll do it. He's very coachable, aggressive, and a good person. Great to have on a basketball team. So those are the
Thank you.
Okay, we'll finish up with two more questions. Tom Petrini, you're next, and then Joe Bardone.
Hey, Coach, you mentioned the other day how excited you were to work with some of these players and the people who love basketball in this room. A lot of those guys are really excited to work with you as well. What are some things that you hope to impart on them and, the people that you might not get a chance to coach again?
Well, I want them to enjoy this experience. The best way to enjoy it, obviously, is to win the gold. That goes without saying. But at the same time, I want them to enjoy the camaraderie they have with other players of their level of talent, and maybe they don't know that well. It expands their lives. I want them to hear the voices of all these coaches that we have here. I got a great staff. I'm learning something every day from them, and so are the players. So it's just it's like a really special situation to have all that talent in one place and be able to discuss and argue and come up with solutions on a day-to-day basis. But to see these guys interact with each other and to know that you're actually in the same room with them is a pretty damn big thrill.
I have a question. Joe, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Coach.
Hi.
Hey, we're talking to Dame today. We heard from Brad yesterday, KD tomorrow. But the bigger picture here is all of your ball handlers and most of your wings are prolific, dynamic scorers. So in a situation like this, do you have to ask someone to change how they play and distribute, and who takes that responsibility?
Well, we all have the responsibility, but first of all, I've got to set the tone, and they've got to understand that if we don't defend, we don't win. These teams that we play execute really well, and we've got to make stops. We've got to be able to take them out of what they do as much as possible. The fact that the players are intelligent is very helpful. The fact that they want to win badly is very helpful, and they're coachable. So from day one, we've made it our emphasis. We've got scorers, but how well will we defend? And that's what it's all about. I might add also rebound, because until you get the rebound, there's no stop.
Thank you, Coach. Thanks, everybody.